Well, I was a very quiet child, and I really didn't want to start great books, but my parents felt that it was a very good thing for me, so I started, and I was so terribly intimidated, and it was so frightening, and there was a whole classroom of people who were listening to what I was saying, and I don't know, I feel like in general, great books, over the process of it, I got a voice from it, because one of the things that high schoolers especially struggle with, I feel, is realizing that it's really hard to say anything worthwhile, and if you do have some kind of self-awareness, you come to realize that the things coming out of your mouth are pretty silly most of the time. And I don't, part of that high school angst is just, why am I here? What am I saying? What's going on? Where is the meaning? And one of the most beautiful things that happened to me in great books was that I could be articulating the views of an author who had moved me, or who had not moved me, who I just thought was cool and interesting and strange and from far off past and exotic for that reason. But for whatever reason, I could articulate what they had said, and in doing so, bring meaning to my own life and give shape to my own soul. And it's people talk a lot about self-expression, how important it is to make sure that what you are is out there. And what I found was that you just aren't much of anyone when you start out, and if you soak yourself in these great epics, ultimately what you end up having is a meaning and a fullness to be able to give out. So I started out as a 12-year-old with not much to say and scared of my own voice, and ended up now I'm in grad school at New St. Andrews College, and I'm a teacher, and I teach rhetoric, and I try to give other kids their voice and help them to be formed by these same patterns and these same ideas.
I think it's important to consider, starting at a young age, but especially through the adolescence, adult ideas. What is the purpose of our life, and how to achieve that?
So then you reach 30, you aren't suddenly trying to figure out what is the purpose of my life. And you've never considered that before, or you've never even considered that there could be different possibilities than what you've always thought.
Yeah, I fly with a lot of people who finish their secondary education and they studied a trade, and now they're working, and there's this sort of vacancy to their life because now they've arrived, they have a job, a profession, they have leisure time, but I mean, what do you do?
What do you do with that?
What do you do with that? Or how do you encounter a challenge at work? The university system, especially if you pursue a technical field, doesn't offer a very engaged debate or even historical look back at the question of why, for what. And to begin that discussion early, when you've got, I guess, a lot more energy and time to consider that is very important.
Well, what I found with the Great Books tutorial is that it exposes you to so many ideas that you're going to encounter them in life, and to be able to be exposed to some pretty heavy concepts in the classroom where you can discuss it and talk about it rather than just being thrown into it in your daily life was extremely valuable. To have already been presented with and thought through ideas, incredibly valuable in my life, in that being able to get together and interact with people who you have this common intellectual ground with was incredibly valuable to me. Just being able to converse with people who are thinking at an extremely high level and very, able to have a discussion with somebody that's far beyond just the surface, hello, how are you kind of conversation.
I think wisdom ultimately is seeing things as God sees them, and God gives us glimpses of it throughout history. Aristotle, one of the most prominent philosophers, described practical wisdom as sort of knowing the right thing to do at the right time, at the right place, for the right reason. And we as people can really only know all of that when we are given foresight by God, because only He can see the full picture. And we're able to really see wisdom in other people, in those who live consistently with the truths of Scripture, those who overcome temptations and endure trials, those who accept criticism and learn from their mistakes, those who choose to live well in both the public eye and in the privacy of their home, who live well on the stage in front of thousands of people as we walk about our daily lives, and who live well behind the curtain where no one else can see. And I think through the great books, God's given us the opportunity to learn from the mistakes and the trials and the triumphs and the wisdom of others, so that we can choose to live well and better for doing so. I think the great books have so influenced our current culture, and to really understand who we are today, we have to understand our past. Just as in order to understand the current ideas, the current discussions, we have to understand the roots that really grew into the flowers that are blooming today. And since there's also just nothing new under the sun, we, through reading these books, can learn from their experiences and learn from their understandings. And so those enable us to live well in the present and to prepare for the future. I think the great books also remind us of just the vast amount of knowledge that lies beyond ourselves. And it humbles us to the fact that, like Isaac Newton, we can say, if I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants.